Well, hello and welcome everyone to our first August Damstra Insights webinar. My name is Ruth and I'm a trainer at Ideagen Damstra Technology. And today we're also lucky to have the Head of Innovation, Paul Hempsall, joining us. And we'll be keeping an eye on any questions you have in that chat. So please feel free to ask those questions about creating insights dashboards, visuals, or if you need Paul and I to show you a feature. So during this webinar, we'll be explaining how to share and schedule dashboards. We will look at different ways you can create your own dashboards and visuals from tables and the columns. But first of all, we're going to have a look at a user profile and user authorization and safety. And then I'm going to hand over to Paul to explain Insights security before we get into Insights creating dashboards. So here we are in safety. And if I go to my settings over on the right-hand side, to my settings, down to users, user authorization. Because Paul's here, we'll have a look for Paul. Paul, let's have a look at your user profile. Go actions and edit. In Paul's user profile, I scroll down, his language is English and Insights, he's a creator. Scrolling down even more, this is Paul's user group profile, and he's been assigned structure from here. Even further going down, Paul is a sensitive user, and if I was to look at his sensitive events access, I can select the sites where the user can be assigned. So at the moment, Paul can be selected as the sensitive user across the whole ABC demo group. But of course, if Paul was just in Australia, he could have access to all the sites, but we might just give him ABC Australia as the person who could view sensitive events or be assigned sensitive events there. So Paul, over to you. That was a bit about settings and user authorization. If you wanted to explain what that means in Insights.
Cool, thanks for that, Ruth. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, I should say now. So I just wanted to talk about the way we've approached security with Damstra Insights. So security was the very first consideration that we made when we were looking at developing Insights access to safety. In fact, it's the first consideration we do for Insights reporting for any of our EPP modules. I'm going to keep this fairly high level, but there's some really important concepts that I want to go over here. So let's have a walk through this. So there's 5 tiers of security for Damstra Insights safety and integration. So plus one additional requirement that covers sensitive events. So the first thing to have a look at there is that first column, which is about client ID. So the first layer really is about restricting the tenant, so their access to what data the Insight product is able to look at. So essentially what this means is that it means that a report for one user is locked into their tenant. So so we've got our NZ demo interface. So my user is locked in to see just NZ demo. So I can't go and have a look at any other sites. So that's the first sort of level of safety that we've got. Then the next level is client features. So for all of your safety incidents, all of your safety instances, you've actually got feature flags that are turned on and off that determine what modules within safety are enabled. So for example, return to work module or WHS risk assessments. And then the next level is every single user has their own permission levels. So that governs whether or not, firstly, you have access to go into Insights to begin with, whether you're a safety viewer or a creator in Insights, and what sort of application of your group profile is assigned to a particular site level. Now, while we're still talking about user permissions, there's a special use case there that you would have seen when Ruth brought up my profile, and that was to show that I'm a sensitive event user. So that means that I can be chosen to be attached to an event that's flagged as sensitive. So that's really important, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then the next level is still within your user permissions is the organization structure. So you can determine what part of the organization a particular user is allowed to see. And then the final last layer there is role permissions. So you might be familiar that in safety, you've got the concept of group profiles, and that determines the type of information that you're able to see within Insights. And we'll go into a little bit more detail as we walk through these examples. So let's have a look at some theory. So I guess the way this all works is Insights looks at the configuration that's set up for your user and your group profiles inside your instance of safety. And we apply what we call row level security. So that basically determines what data is hidden from me or shown to me based on what site level access I've got, what my role is allowing me to see, and my user permissions. And then we've got an additional bit of security on there as well, which is masking policies. And this basically shows what information is redacted from me. So I might still see an actual row of data returned in a report, but some of that data may be sensitive. So it might be PII, so it could be sensitive information that might have somebody's address or their phone number or email address. And so I need to have particular settings in my user account and my group profile to now allow me to actually see that information. And if I don't have those permissions in my group profile or user permissions, then that information will be redacted. So it's about making sure that we don't expose information to people that shouldn't be able to see it. So I've got a couple of examples. So my first user that I'm going to look at here is Luke. Now, Luke has quite high level of access inside the instance of Damstra Safety. So their group profile access is set up so that Luke can see events. He's able to see employee and contractor people types. He's able to see contact details and has access to the return to work module. His user configuration is set up so he's a creator, so he can go into Insights and view reports, but he can actually create reports as well. And Luke is set up in safety as a sensitive user, so he can be assigned to an event as a sensitive user. And the sites that Luke has got access to is head office, warehouse, factory, and gatehouse. So pretty much the entire structure in our theoretical safety instance. So when Luke goes into the events register, Luke's able to see events across all of the sites that he's got access to. And there's a few things that are important to have a look at here. So some of these sensitive events, we've got 2 events here in this register that are sensitive. Now, one of them you can see that Luke can see the description for and the people involved and actually see details against that sensitive event. And that's because Luke is assigned to that event as the sensitive user. Whereas if we look at event ID 2311, Luke can still see that there is a sensitive event there, but can't see any of the information behind that. And that's because Luke's not attached to that event as a sensitive user. Now, the reason why it's important that we still expose that there is an event there is that it means that in the events register, you can still include sensitive events in your aggregate count. So if you're doing a count of how many events are in my system within any sort of time frame, then it will include a sensitive events inside the count there. But you just can't see the information that's behind those. All right, so let's have a look at another dashboard. So Luke then wants to look at the people register. And so again, Luke is able to see people that are assigned to all of the sites here, so warehouse, head office, and gatehouse there. Luke's also allowed to see contractors and employees, so you can see both people types. And because Luke has got contact details enabled, he's able to see their address details and their phone numbers and emails and anything else that would be considered to be private and sensitive. So let's have a look at another user. So we've got Leah here. Leah's got a little bit more restricted access. She's only allowed to see events and contractors. She can't see employee people type details. Her user configuration is set up so that she's a safety viewer only, so she can't create anybody in there, and she's not a sensitive user. So she can't be assigned to any events in safety as a sensitive user. And she's also only got access to the warehouse and head office. So when we look at the events register here, it looks a little bit different for her compared to what Luke was able to see. So you can see here her access to the events is restricted to warehouse and head office only. And for the sensitive events, it's always going to be redacted for her because she can't be assigned to a sensitive event. And then when we look at the people register, you might recall that Luke had access to see pretty much everybody in the register, but Lee is only able to see people in the warehouse, and she's only allowed to see contractors as well. The other flag that she doesn't have in her user configure, her group profile access is the contact details. So she can't see anybody's address or phone number. And our last person, just to showcase another example here, is Han. Han's able to see employees and contractors, and is able to see their contact details, but he doesn't have access to anything else. He's not allowed to see events in the system at all. He's also a safety viewer from a perspective of insights access, and can only see head office and gatehouse. So when Han goes into the events register, he gets shown a no data message, and that's because he's essentially not allowed to see anything in the events register. So he can still go into the events register, but no data will be shown for him. So that's that row level security that's kicking in to prevent him from seeing anything. And then when we look at the people register for Han, so Han's able to see both employees and contractors, and he's allowed to see workers that are assigned to head office and gatehouse. And because Han can see contact details, he's allowed to see their address and phone number, etc. So the reason why this is important is you need to keep this in mind that depending on your user's access in safety, they may see slightly different information in the reports and insights. So that's really important to keep that in mind. And that also extends to scheduled reports. So a scheduled report in Insights will always want to use the recipient's safety credentials when it runs that report. So it could mean that you might have an events register report that gets sent out, and depending on how the user is configured, they may get slightly different information based on what they're allowed to access and whether or not any of that data is masked for them. So just keep that in mind for your scheduled reports. And it's also important that when you schedule a report to an external user, somebody that doesn't exist in safety, then what that will mean is that the credentials that will be used for running that scheduled report to external users will be your credentials. So if you've got a lot of access in safety, if your user has a lot of access in safety, then just be aware that what that might mean to your scheduled reports when you get that sent out, what data will be get shared. So some customers actually will create a report user with specifically limited access to things. So you're unlikely to want to share sensitive event information inside a report. So what you may do is set up a specific report user that has limited access so that it's nice and safe to use that account for scheduling our reports. So what we might do is go over to a bit of a live demo, which I hope I don't regret. So I'm going to log into Damstra Safety here. So we're in the NZ demo environment here. I'm just going to quickly just remind everybody what my user account settings are. So I'm going to log in and just have a look at me. Okay, so if I look at my account here, you can see here that I'm configured to be a creator in Insights, and I have the role ABC admin is the group profile that's assigned to me at the ABC group level. So I can see pretty much the entire organization structure here. And I'm also configured to be a sensitive user, and across all of the ABC group site structure. So yeah, any events that are within that site structure, I could be assigned as a sensitive user. So the other thing I want to look at here is just show you the ABC admin settings. So if we go and have a look at that group profile. All right, so we've got ABC admin settings. Let's have a look at the group access. Now, The group access controls what features are turned on or available to a user right across all of safety. And that's overkill for what Insights needs to do. So what we've done is we've developed a specific node that's just for Insights. So Insights doesn't look at anything else inside here. It only looks at the nodes that are within this section of your group profile. So you can see here for Insights, I have every single module enabled. If I had contact details disabled, then that would mean that I would be able to see contractors and I'd be able to see other types of people. But I'm just trying to see what other people there are, volunteers and workers, but I wouldn't be able to see their contact details until I turn that on. All right, so let's jump into Insights and actually have a look at this in practice. So what we're going to do, we're going to compare what I can see, what my user can see, and then we'll jump over to Ruth, and Ruth will show the same dashboard with what information she's able to access. All right, so I'm going to jump into this dashboard that we've created. It's a very basic dashboard that's just got some events information in there. And if you have a look here, you can see we've got two sensitive events that are set up inside the system. Now, the first sensitive event, you can see we've got some conditional formatting here just to highlight that green. But this one shows that I'm the assigned user for this sensitive event. So this is event 2336, and I'm allowed to see all the information associated with that event because I'm the assigned user. So if I go back to safety quickly and just show you that event, so you can tell we're not telling any porcupines. 2336. And you can see this is a sensitive event, and I'm assigned to that as a sensitive user. So I'm allowed to see that, that event inside the reporting solution. Whereas if we go to event 2338, while I know that there's a sensitive event there, all of the information there is, the key information there is redacted. So I can't see that information. So that's just a bit of a point in difference there. So what we might do is hand over to Ruth, and Ruth can demonstrate what her user is allowed to see with that same dashboard.
Thanks, Paul. That was an awesome explanation. Just going to quickly show you this. If I was to go to my risk, to my events, and I'm Kelly Stewart, you'll see that I have event 2338. It's a sensitive event. It's got that S there. If I had a heap of sensitive events or a heap of events, I could filter by sensitive events, which gives me the sensitive event that I can see. But in my events registered in safety, I don't have number 2336. Just quickly, if I wondered where 2336 was going for super users or that highest level of user group profile and safety, within governance reports, I might have a report called Event Register Sensitive Events. If I was to view that register for all records and preview that, we see 2336 belongs to Paul and 2338 belongs to Kelly. But if you saw these not started events or investigations and nothing was happening with them, you can't see any details for those events, but at least you could call up earlier and say, you've got this event if you want to do something about it. And Joseph might need to put in a service desk ticket or support ticket saying, please can you reassign sensitive event 23112308 to someone else. If you can't see that report in your governance reports, it's because obviously for privacy and security reasons, it's disabled. But for your user group profile, if you are super user admin, if I go to users, user group profiles, and the super user actions, edit that group access, to governance, reports, event management, event registers, and this is where you'll see sensitive events will be automatically disabled. So for super users, if you turn that on, save that group access, you will have that new report in your governance standard reports. So let's go to Insights, and I'll share the dashboard. I'll show you the dashboard that I created. So now this is, I created one visual or one dashboard called Events Last 3 Months, the visual. So 2338, I can see those details. And 2336, bit of conditional formatting. For me, it's around the other way that Paul showed you. So I created one dashboard, I shared it with Paul, and that's what he could see, and that's what I could see. So I hope that clears up between Paul's fabulous explanation and seeing what happens in real life compared to the events register. I hope that clears up some of the questions you had about making one dashboard and not having to filter it, is that in the background, it's all filtered for sensitive, user group profile, and user group access. So I'm going to head back to the library. And what I'd like to go on to now is the different ways that you can make your own dashboards as a creator. The first way I can do this, I'm in my library. The first way I could do this is go straight to my visual gallery. And in my visual gallery, if I really liked one of these visuals, quite a new feature is I could favorite those visuals and look at my favorite visuals. These are the visuals that I like adding to dashboards when I'm creating different dashboards. Over here, I'm going to add a visual. When I add a visual, it's going to ask me what source I want it from. So most of us are very familiar with the events register. That's the source that I want to create my visual from. And from my source, I could create a table. Or what I'm doing is I'm dragging all the information from every field to every column in my table or register. So if I scroll across the bottom, every field, every table, every register. The visual I want to create is I probably want to create a events by type and status. So looking at all my columns with my events by type and status, I find my event type. Type of event. I've lost it, Paul. Event type. Should be here somewhere. Oh, well. What I'll do is I'm going to go to my settings, and I would like that in a bar graph. So now I've made my bar graph, and it just chooses a random group and random metrics. From here, I want to make my bar graph horizontal. I want a wee subgroup. Remember, events by type and events by status. I might stack that bar chart, have the values, and put my labels outside diagonal. Because I've added my labels, I'm going to take off my legend, go to my color palette, and turn off legend. And then over here in my group, I want to group that by my event type. And my subgroup for my clustered bar chart will be my event status. You'll notice that my bar chart looks a bit weird with just completed. That's because down here in the bottom left, it's defaulted to the completed date. If I click on a completed date, I actually want the event date. And my event date, I would like a preset current year to date and apply. While I'm in my visual, I can add a filter to say that my event types can include or exclude. I'm going to include. I just want near miss, injury, and incident. Continue and apply. So now I've made my visual, I need to rename it and save as. And while I'm here, the visuals in your visual gallery, the standard visuals that are attached to standard dashboards, you won't be able to save over them. You can't mess with them. You have to create your own visuals, but you can use existing visuals to create your visuals. So I'm going to save my visual as events by type and statuses and status. Save that, and it will successfully save my visual. But while I'm here, remember I had all those columns, I could do other groupings as well. I might like to go back to my menu and make a pie chart and group by the subject. Back in my settings, I'll take off the values. And yes, Anthony, you can change these colors. I'm going to change some colors for you. So I've got my theme for these visuals, which are attached to standard dashboards. Or I could make the colors different. Oh, that's a bit bright. Now that I've saved my visual, now I'm going to save it as so what I've been showing you is making my own visuals in the visual gallery. Getting back to the library, this is where I could add a dashboard and add those existing visuals that I made in the visual gallery. And they always appear at the top of the ones that I've just created. So I want my events by type, and it's keeping its colors, and it's keeping its existing filter, and it's keeping its event date, year to date. And then I'm going to add a visual, and you'll see that this events by type and status isn't in my select visual list anymore, so that I'm not doubling up thinking, what did I add then? What did I add then? I'm just going to add this one. My event subjects year to date.
Ruth, before we go too far, I don't want to ruin your flow, but just to wrap up Anthony's question, can you go back to the color palette again on one of those visuals? The pie chart's fine.
Sure can.
Cool. And so if you actually want to specifically say that incidents should be green, can you just go back for me, please, Ruth? Yeah, if you click on incident in the legend, so just under, and click on that, and then you could make it whatever color you want. So you could make it as horrible a color as you'd like, and then that and then that'll set that. So it overrides the color palette. So you can specify that on for each of those types.
Wow, isn't it a gem having you in this webinar today? I didn't know that.
So we've had some customers that have asked us to bring in their corporate branding, and yeah, specifically that's the sort of thing that we've been doing with that.
Sorry about that. That's the other thing, Paul, is that you need to click off the color palette. So as I was messing about with that one, Paul, I have to click off and save. Wow. So now, because I've changed the colors there, I do need to resave this visual. Saving this visual affects all the dashboards that use this visual. Okay. And now I'm going to save my visual, my dashboard. And save that. Going back to my library, the other way is we could add a dashboard and add a new visual. And the new visual, put from the events register. And this time I'm going to use my table. So I just want my table, my safety events register. When I'm filtering this table or this visual from the visual gallery, don't forget it's a standard table. A lot of the questions Paul and I get is that I've added filters, I've done conditional formatting, I've changed the columns and nothing's working. So for this table, I want my event date for my current year to date and apply. And now I'm going to come over to my settings. And this is where we find the columns. We can edit these columns for my safety events register table. I have my event ID first and my event date. While I'm over here with this event date, I'm going to format that event date where I don't really want the weekday. Go none and apply. Here's my event date. Hour of the day. I don't want that. I can just remove it. Hour of day. Reported date. Because I've got my event date, I don't mind the reported date. Completed. My event type, my category and subject. Person involved. Don't need their first name, middle name, last name. Person reported. Oops. I've accidentally taken out the person reported, but I really need it. This is where I can come up to edit those columns, scroll down, and put my person reported back. Continue, and that person reported has gone down to the bottom of my columns. So I'm just going to clean this up. My table, but these are all the columns in the register. So a good way of creating your visuals or your tables is saying, what do I really need to report? Go to the register or the table and say, that's where that information is, that's where that information is. Now I need to build myself a visual out of that table.
And you can reorder
Let's do
the
that.
fields as well with just
We might
grabbing,
do that.
using the grabby on the left-hand side.
We might just put the event date before the event ID.
Yeah, perfect.
So now that I've made my table, I'm going to add a filter that the event type, again, I'll just use those standard event types, continue and apply. So now my filter is applied to my table. And now I need to add that to the visual gallery as or do I need to tick this or untick this? Leave it ticked.
Replace the visual on the dashboard. Yeah,
Right.
sure. I'd keep it, yeah.
It's defaulted. So now I've saved my new visual and it's been added to my visual gallery. So with this dashboard, I'm just going to quickly name it just a table and save that. All right, so here's our 3 examples of how we would create dashboards and visuals, events using the visuals from the gallery, just a table. So I really like events using visuals from the gallery, and I want Paul to have it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to Share Dashboard, and it's called Events Using Visuals from the Gallery. Sharing a dashboard is just going to have the visuals or the dashboards that I created. Because there's no point sharing a standard dashboard because everyone has those standard dashboards. So events using visuals from the gallery, I'm going to share that dashboard. And sharing my dashboard, I'm going to add a user. And I'm going to share that with Paul. And apply. And Paul, when I share my dashboard with Paul, I could say you can read my dashboard, events using visuals from the gallery. You can change my dashboards and save over it or save it as your own. Or you could delete my dashboard. So for Paul, you can make changes to the dashboard and we'll work on this together. So I'm going to save that. Now where it says update sharing permissions for all the visuals in this dashboard, always click yes. Because remember, when I made this dashboard, I made my own visuals and added them to my visual gallery as well. So if I don't update sharing those visuals to Paul, Paul's not going to be able to view this dashboard. Is that right, Paul?
Yeah, you see the dashboard, but the visuals that are embedded inside the dashboard I may not have access to. So yeah, it's usually just yes is the answer that you want to provide.
Cool. And I've already saved that, so I can cancel that. Up here in Share Dashboard, if I was to add a group, for customers that aren't an NZ demo, there are groups that you could add them to. And you would have spoken to support about groups in here. But mainly the groups belong to your site selection, part of the ABC group. If you don't have groups or users in here, that should be here, please lodge a ticket to service at damstratechnology.com and Paul and his team will do that in the background for you. So now I have shared my events using visuals from the gallery. I'm going to favorite it because it's quite a good one of my visuals. And then over here, I'm going to schedule that as well for year to date, because remember I used that dynamic date year to date, and I want to see this every month. It's a set and forget dashboard. So I want a new schedule, and it could be a PDF, a screenshot, or a spreadsheet. I'll leave it as a PDF. It's coming to me, and we're going to add Paul here. So remember right at the start, if there were sensitive events in that visual, when I schedule it to Paul, even though I've created one dashboard, we're going to have different views based on our user group profile and our user access and that sensitive event. and I want it monthly on about the 2nd from the end of this month till the end of the year, and save that. So we can see with the play button there, the scheduled report is active, and if I wanted to stop that report, I can just delete it. So I'm going to close that one. So that team was creating a dashboard using the visuals that we created in the visual gallery, and creating a dashboard, creating a visual from the sources. Paul, we're having a look at those questions. Is there anything else anyone needs to know?
No additional questions at this point. I did have something that I was going to go off script, if that's okay, Ruth.
Love off script. Yep, let's go.
Cool. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen just to walk through. This is a bit of a sneak peek of a new dashboard that we've been working on. So we've had a couple of support questions coming through from customers just wanting to sort of understand what changes are being made to dashboards and sources, and how you can always keep on top of the changes that are being made, because we are getting lots of changes coming through. So we're always modifying sources and dashboards. So something that we're working on, and it's getting close to release. The dashboard's pretty good, but there's some behind the scenes stuff that needs to be wrapped up. But we've got a Damstra Insights release communications dashboard that we're getting close to being able to make available. And essentially what it does is allows you to see the changes that we're making to dashboards and to data sources. So for example, if you want to have a look at, and this works across not just safety, but also any of the other products that we're doing the dashboarding for in Insights. But if I can refine that to safety if I wanted to, and then I can say, okay, well, do I care about looking at dashboards or data sources or visuals in particular? So I might just ignore that for now and just go straight to a dashboard name. So if I want to see what some of the changes that have been made to recent dashboards, so say, for example, the events register, this will come through and just filter this dashboard for me. And when it finishes updating, you'll be able to see the list of all of the changes that have been made to the events register dashboard. And so you can see here that on the 17th of July, we added a new feature and we added a couple of extra fields to that dashboard. So that's just something, if you want to see a bit of a history of changes that we're making, you'll be able to start tracking that in this dashboard. Any questions on that? I'm hoping to have that released in the next couple of weeks. So there's, like I said, there's just some infrastructure that needs to be set up to allow us to release that. And once that's done, yeah, we'll share that out. And we have put a little bit of history in there, so I think it goes back to maybe May or June for some of our updates, and we'll keep bringing a few more in there as we've got time to add the historic changes. Okay, so that's just a bit of a sneak peek. So thanks, Ruth.
Paul, someone's asked about linking visuals to filters if we create filters.
Yeah, great example. Do you want me to show that, Ruth, or do you want to do it?
Oh, you're the master, Paul. You can show that.
All right. Let me just prepare my screen, and I'll start on a brand new. All right. Cool. Let me just share. Won't be a second. All right, so I've just started off with a blank dashboard here. So let's go and bring in, we'll make this a super basic example here. So let's go events register again. And I'll just bring in a table here. All right, so you've got a couple of different types of filters. My preference is to use what they call filter snippets, which is a newer addition to Insights. It was just introduced in the last couple of months. So what you can do is you can add a filter snippet just from this top right corner here. So let's click and add that. And I'm just going to put that up top above everything and resize that a little. Oops, sorry, need to resize the entire row. All right, there we go. That's looking better. And okay, and let me just fix the date here. Let's going to put in a bit of a larger date range. Just so we can see a little bit more data coming through. Okay, excellent. So here's my filter snippet. So let's say that we want to filter that to just show, to filter to the event types. So what we can do is we can go into our settings for the filter snippet, and I'm just going to call it event type. Just to apply to get that name in there. And then what we're going to hook it up to the event type in the data source. So we are using the events register. Okay, and I'm going to select the column that I'm going to be using to filter, and that's the event type. Okay, and apply that change. And there's a few things that it gets a bit wacky here. I think that's a bit of a visual bug that they need to clean up. But if I change that to drop down list, which is a much easier way of using the filter snippets anyway. So set that to drop down list. You can set it so that you can only have one selection available, or people can have multiple selections depending on how you do that. You can also set it up so that it doesn't actually change the dashboard or filter the dashboard. If you don't want to as soon as you change the setting, you can force it to be only make the change on submit. So it depends on how dynamic you want the dashboard to be. Okay, so that is the filters set up there. But if I go and have a look, if I choose injury now, you can see it's actually not changing anything here in the rest of the dashboard. That's because I need to hook the filter snippet up to the visual. So to do that, I choose connect widgets, and I'm just going to add a widget, and the widget that I want to add is my table. And now what I want to do is tell the visual what field it should be filtering on. And usually it's pairing. So the filter snippet is set to event type. So usually you would need to have filter the event type on the table visual as well. So now if I change this and say near miss, you can see it's now updating the table visual to filter to near misses. Okay, and what you can do here is you can actually have, if I've got multiple visuals set up, so let's turn this one into a pie chart or something like that. Okay, let's make that a little bit more interesting. I don't know why it keeps picking sensitive, but that didn't really help either. All right, let's do it on event type. That'll pair it with our filter nicely as well. All right, perfect. So we've got it on event type. So I just need to make sure that the connected widget is not only just looking at a table, which we've configured, but also the the pie chart. And the reason it's already configured is because I copied the visual. So that was just a nice, easy shortcut. But if it doesn't come up here as a connected visual already, all you need to do is you can choose copy here. And Insights is smart enough to realize that, hey, for all these other visuals, you want to hook that up to the event type. And if I had 20 visuals on my dashboard, it would automatically populate that for me already. So that's a nice, easy way of setting up your filter snippets. So now if I, again, choose incident, it should update both of these visuals just to see incidents. All right, does that answer the question?
Well, thanks, Paul. You are a star. I agree with everyone on this call. You are a star, Paul. Thank you so much for that.
Yes, it will be. We will be saving this seminar, by the way, too.
And it goes to YouTube as well.
And this is our 4th webinar now, Ruth, is that right? So the previous ones are all available on YouTube now already.
Yes, Paul, all the webinars that we do live are saved to YouTube, and this is our 4th in the series over the last few months about building dashboards and ways to build dashboards. And we've got one more on the 20th of August, Paul. So we'll be looking at any of your questions, any feedback, any tickets. What do you want to know? What can we show you together with Paul the Master attending our webinars now? So thanks for that, Paul. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Enjoy the rest of the day, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thank you so much.